another dynamic presentation that we are about to see. We want to bring to the stage the author of the book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, based on the theory of African internationalism of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Comrades, bring to the stage Chairwoman Penny Hess to give her report on the APSC.
Uhuru. Uhuru. I am Penny Hess, chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African Revolution. We salute the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, and I say that it's a profound honor. It is humbling, and I'm so proud to be able to have the opportunity to be here on the winning side under the leadership of the African working class. And I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, under whose leadership I have had the honor of working and being organized for the last 42 years, and who is the leader of the African nation. And I want to salute Deputy Chair Ona Zanele Yeshitela, who gives so much leadership to the African People's Solidarity Committee and on the economic and political front of the African People's Socialist Party. And to the entire Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party and to all the members of the African People's Socialist Party, we salute you from the African People's Solidarity Committee. I also want to salute all of the younger generation who are joining this movement. I want to salute you. I love you. You fight for winning the people. You can't wait. You're hungry. Yes. You're hungry to bring those reparations in and expand and build the Uhuru Solidarity Movement to millions and millions of other white people, to rescue them from the pedestal as the colonizer and to bring them into the camp of the liberation of African people, the African working class, and the future of this planet. So I want to salute you, and I know that you are the new generation that is ready to go out there. I want to salute the incredible flag of the red, black, and green that is flying, the flag of the African working class, and to say that when we embrace African internationalism, when we embrace the stand of reparations and commit class suicide, national suicide, as the oppressor nation, then that flag is our flag. Right. That flag is our flag as well. The other day, it was the birthday of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Ona Zanele Yeshitela. And after that, I was thinking about, well, how could I better, because I didn't feel that I did justice, but how could I better sum up Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Ona Zanele Yeshitela? How could I sum that up? And there's so much to say about the chairman. Volumes will be written about the chairman, but I wanted to say that revolution, I've learned this from the chairman, is based in the masses of the people. It's based in millions and millions of people, but in every revolution, there is one person. There is one person who makes it happen. I've been able to study different revolutions around the world under the chairman's leadership in China, Vietnam, incredible victories that people won. But there's one person who stands up, who seizes that moment, who galvanizes the people, who organizes them, who builds the party, who implements democratic centralism, who creates the political theory and creates the army and the cadre and fights to win the masses. There is one person that does that. And we studied the Chinese Revolution, we studied Vietnam, and those are really important revolutions because they're some of the few anti-colonial struggles and movements that were under the leadership of a communist party of the working class. Many revolutions were not. And what they did is beyond comprehension. Could human beings march across? You know, the Chinese took 100,000 people on a strategic retreat that's called the Long March that crossed the Himalayan mountains, and they, you know, the Communist International never gave China any money. It never gave it any reinforcements because they saw the struggle as being Europeans, not Asians. And that the Chinese army marched across the Himalayan mountains in sandals. They did not have boots. They did not have coats. They had thin jackets. And you know, and you look at this history, and you look at the Vietnam, and you look at the Tet Offensive and the Dien Bien Phu and the digging the tunnels, and how the U.S. bombed what they called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and every single day the masses came out and fixed that trail, fixed that highway. That was the supply line, and you know, how could even human beings do that? And you look at those revolutions today, and they won. They defeated the U.S. military and the largest military forces, the strongest military forces in the world. But yet they lost the revolution because look at the masses today. They are suffering. They are still suffering. And that what happened with the chairman was, you know, most of the revolutions of the 20th century happened when revolution was the main trend in the whole world. But the African Revolution was defeated, and it was defeated in an incredibly brutal way. And Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the only one in history that I know of who has gone against the counterinsurgency single-handedly, who had to take the ashes of defeat in just a few years when, in the 60s, when Look magazine and Life magazine had full spreads that Black is beautiful, that, you know, the African Revolution stood tall, and the whole world recognized that. And within a few years, it was defeated. The chairman is the only person that goes from the previous period to today, who could bridge that gap and stood and continued to stand and fight. The chairman summed up so brilliantly the counterinsurgency, because this counterinsurgency that was waged against the African working class in this country, as the chairman has told us, and there is an incredible chapter in this political report about it, that not only was there the assassination, the murders, the imprisonment, the torture, all of the things that they classically do in the counterinsurgency, but in this particular one, they took away, they stripped away all colonized economic activity, all of it, and imposed a chemical warfare, crack cocaine in particular and heroin, against and massively flooding it into the African community and creating the only job, which was the drug economy. And so, as the chairman says, the US government was successful not only in defeating the revolutionary will and understandings and movement of the people, but actually successfully criminalizing them so that many believe that they were the criminals, you know, and that everything that happened, and that only the chairman always upheld the dignity and the faith in the fate of the African working class to lead and to rise to its full stature. And there's one thing that I know from 42 years, from being back in Oakland, in the Oakland years, or what we call that, in the early 80s, there's one thing I know about the chairman. That is that the defeat and the suffering of the African working class, for him, was personal. It was personal. It was deep, and it was profound. And that he led his life every single day in the fight to liberate Africa, to rebuild that movement, and to be able to create a theory that summed up what the errors are, so that the next time the African working class would win. It would win, it would defeat and destroy U.S. imperialism, and it would liberate Africa and African people around the world. And I salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I also wanted to say just a brief summation of Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Yeshitela, because one thing that I know from experience, and I appreciate so much, is that Deputy Chair Ona does not and really cannot tolerate pretense or bullshit or anything less than your very best and what the standard is for the African working class. She cannot tolerate that. And if you ever think that you could bring that to her, you will face a fire of struggle. And I think part of your name is fire. And I appreciate that so much because, you know, from the African People's Solidarity Committee, our commitment is that reparations means the very best. This is not charity. This is in our interest to return the stolen resources of African people. And there's so much I could say about Deputy Chair. She is very brilliant, as we all know. And one thing that struck me and really inspired me so much was a few years ago, I was in her office, and I noticed that she had the book An Uneasy Equilibrium open, and that is the political report to the 6th Congress. And she had it all like highlighted, underlined, all the part that had to do with the economic development in her part. And I was really struck by that because, it wasn't like, wow, it was a great Congress, great political report, now I'm putting this political report up on the shelf and I'm never going to look at it again. And after I saw that, and then I realized later, every time I go in there, that book is still there, it's still open to that, and that I realized from the work that she was doing in the party and in the world that she was actually going word for all of the things that were assigned to her office. Literally, she took it literally, and she was making it happen. And even, just rereading the chairman's political report to the plenary in 2017, that laid out Black Power Blueprint. That laid it out. And she just like, got to get on a plane, got to go, got to do it. And she organizes her office and she does that. And I have so much admiration for that because that is what we are supposed to do. So I want to say uhuru to Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair. And the chairman solved the problems of the revolution. He scientifically determined how the African working class and the colonized working class would win. And one of the most important, and it's tied to so many other things, but one of the most important problems was the question of what to do with these white people. What to do with them. That is something that the African Revolution had asked for a long, long time. And the formation of the African People's Solidarity Committee under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party forever changed the world. It forever changed the world because now there's an alternative to physical suicide. There's an alternative to jump off that pedestal that we sit on at the expense of African people and to stand on the forward side of history. And so, you know, this is the opportunity that we have to bring other white people all over the world into. And it should be very clear to my comrades in the Solidarity Movement. Pardon me?
There's an opportunity
for self-criticism. Uhuru. The chairman said there's an opportunity now for self-criticism, for real self-criticism, and there was never that before. And we thank you, Chairman, for that opportunity. And I just, you know, to the comrades that are here from the African People's Solidarity Committee, from USM, it has to be very clear that this is the revolution. Yes. This is the revolution. This is not a chatting place. This is not something for a cafe. This is not consumer of information. This, we have seen it. This is the will, the iron will of the African working class to fight, to seize Africa, to seize its reparations. It's going to fight. We are entering a new period. We see the cadre. We see the cadre of the African People's Socialist Party in all these incredible reports that we've seen in the last few days. We see that they are ready. They are ready to go into the entire world and make this struggle and bring that deer that's been shot in the heart but still galloping down and get rid of its body forever. Yes. And all of it. And the African working class is going to fight. There's going to be a lot of coupe tete and brulee kai. It's going to be real. And the African People's Socialist Party has called on the African People's Solidarity Committee. We have a mission. We have a single-minded mission that we have to carry out. The chairman, when he solved the problems of the African Revolution, he brought about the political theory of African internationalism, which makes us be able to see the world now, to see the world as it really is and how it can be changed. And it makes you smart. It makes you, it's the reality of the world, and it is profound to be able to embrace it as white people ourselves. The chairman introduced the reality that capitalism is parasitic. There is no, you know, the capitalism of the white left, that it started out as a nice little thing in Europe, but it ended up in imperialism. No, the chairman showed that it was imperialism first when Europe left the boundaries, the coasts of Europe, and went into Africa to assault that continent and turn African human beings into commodities for sale, to enslave them, to kidnap them, to take everything, every possible thing that they've ever had, and make it possible for white people everywhere to live, to flourish, to become the most highly paid and the highest standard of living any place in the world. This is parasitic capitalism. It began on the assault on Africa, and we know from the chairman's leadership and the science that all white people, regardless of what other contradictions we have, sit on the pedestal of the oppression of African people and the people on the planet Earth, and that everything that we have is stolen, and that we have participated in this state. We have been the state when the state wasn't there. Yeah. We have murdered, we have slaughtered, we have lynched, we have tortured, we have ripped the babies from the stomach of African women, we have carried out the genocide against the indigenous people. We have done this. And we have done this in a society that has its own narrative lie that says that we are the reasonable ones. We are the moral ones. As the chairman has been pointing out, the lie and what we face now is the narrative, the voice of the African working class, overturning what has been the subjects of history for the last 600 years and creating the narrative of the future of this entire planet and the liberation of African people. APSC, the African People's Solidarity Committee, is part of the party's strategy for African liberation. We are not a separate organization. We are an organization of the African People's Socialist Party. In fact, in the Constitution it's called a constituent organization, an organization of the party which has a particular role to play. And that this is the party's plan to extend the African Revolution into the white community, into the white society, and that is our job. That is our job, to go into the white community, to return the stolen resources and deepen the crisis of imperialism, because imperialism expects us to have unity with it. And this breaks that forever. This breaks that forever, and it weakens the unity of, that is needed by imperialism. It stops the flow of parasitic capitalism. This is how it happens. Because, you know, think about when we have hundreds of thousands of white people in this organization, and everywhere we are raising reparations, we are demanding reparations, we are doing what Jesse did in that election. We are out in churches and schools and in the communities of white people saying that reparations must be paid. We are turning back over the resources that are stolen from the African population to the African Revolution, and that this is the future for us as well. So I wanted to say that every struggle that is in APSC now is, believe me, it has been 1,000 times more in the past. And it took the African People's Socialist Party almost 10 years to win us to African internationalism, to win us. That doesn't mean that we didn't do some good work sometimes, but African internationalism wasn't our own. We saw ourselves as a parallel thing, and this is something that we really have to understand, and we have to sort of turn that understanding over to the new generation so that we won't ever go there again, that we can really, really perceive this in the way that it has to be. So we have to train you. When the chairman formed APSC in 1976, I mean, we were feral, we were savage, we were arrogant, self-centered wildness, and the party tamed us. The party brought us to the place the chairman really, through constant struggle and political education over and over and over again, until it came to a place where the different camps inside of APSC came to a head and came to a struggle. And many people, several people left APSC at that time. But this was in 1985, almost 10 years later, when APSC finally got it, that African internationalism is ours. Of course, we are African internationalists, and what happened is then we could come to the conclusion ourselves that we owe reparations. Because before that, the party would say, well, we want you to build a committee to raise $30,000 for the Dusty Woods campaign, or raise this or that. And we would do it, and then we would be like tired, and we just couldn't, you know, we'd have to take a few months or years to get back together again. And that, you know, that we came to the conclusion, if we understood parasitic capitalism, African internationalism, and it was ours, then we have a reparations responsibility that has to go on day after day after day after day. This is the front. This is the front of the party's strategy inside the white community. And so, you know, I want to say that, again, anything that we see today, we did it. We can, so many horrible struggles that we were responsible for, we did that. But we have to be really clear that the African People's Solidarity Committee is not our organization. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is not our organization. We can't give it away. It is not something we can give to somebody else, first of all, because it is the party's. And it also, it also says, something that we have to understand, that the African working class leads the revolution for the entire world, for the entire world. And the party is determined, and always has, to bring the entire world with it. Everybody who wants to go there, they're bringing them. And the world in the 60s recognized that. That's why they had Huey Newton in Vietnam, and China hosted him there, because they recognized that the placement of the African working class inside the belly of imperialist capitalism was key, was a revolutionary force that was key to the victory of oppressed and colonized peoples everywhere else. That the US had to fight here, even as it was fighting against oppressed peoples there. And so there is only one solidarity. There's only one. There's only one, and that this is the whole world. And I think that, it's in our white brains that separates things in a certain way. Yeah. Because the African People's Socialist Party, and even before that, the African Revolution has always, all the way back to Marcus Garvey and before that, has always stood in absolute solidarity with every other revolutionary force in the entire world, and given anything that they could give. And we don't, and I want to say that we have to think about how arrogant it is so are we worried about that? I'm raising that. I'm raising that because, people raise things to other organizations, and even other organizations are the property of the party. They are not ours. And that this fact of solidarity is one that is an anti-imperialist stand for us. And this is our work right here, under the leadership of the African working class. And I am proud to be the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And, I want to say something that I've seen raised quite a bit here during this process up until today, is the question of subjectivism. And this is something that it's very serious that we have to take this on inside of APSC. I know that there is, it is a struggle that the chairman is waging in the party, but I know that subjectivism for white people is way different than subjectivism of the colonized. And that what we're dealing with is the challenge of not being the subject of history anymore. That's what this is about. I just wanted to raise one thing about just what I was talking about before, the question of solidarity, which I forgot to raise here, that back in the 70s, in the late 70s, the African People's Socialist Party was in San Francisco before it went to Oakland. And at that time, the FSLN was the revolutionary force of the Nicaraguan Revolution, and there were very many FSLN cadre in San Francisco because at that time, there were many Nicaraguans living in exile in San Francisco, so they were there to organize. And there were members of the FSLN organizing that were sent to organize in the community there. And the party made immediately strong bonds with the comrades from the FSLN. And there would be representatives from that organization, from that revolution, that would speak at all party events and APSC events. And the message from the representatives of the FSLN always was, if you want to support the revolution in Nicaragua, stand in solidarity with the African liberation movement inside the borders of the United States. They were very, very, very clear about that. So we have to realize that this is time to get ourselves out of the center, that there is something much, much bigger that's out there, that the chairman said. There's something about changing the world. There's something about giving up all the messages that imperialism and white power give us every single day, that we deserve to be in the center of this freaking world. And the entire population of the earth says, hell no, hell no. So we are communist and we are known as organizers. I just want to say quickly that I heard Director Akile say that there would be protocols for Facebook. But I want us to realize that even if you're not in APSC, if you are in USM, you are still a known organizer, and you cannot just put out any foolishness on Facebook that you want to put. It would be like doing an outreach table and putting out, oh, my pain, my this and that. And when we see other comrades, new comrades, trying to put out very personalized things and very subjective things on Facebook, known under the auspices of USM, we have to step in and deal with that and take that out, because we are not on Facebook as personal anything. You are in the revolution now, so you are there as an organizer, period. Period. You have relinquished that. And we have a strategy. I know Comrade Mara is a person who is part of the strategy for the solidarity content, and I want us to end the subjectivism on Facebook. I don't care who's putting it out, it has to stop. It has to stop. We have a strategy, and that strategy is to build white reparations, to build the birthdays, the solidarity with Black Power Blueprint, and all the other work that we're doing. So I want to say that, you know, we have a need to know policy, so if you don't know something, don't ask. If it has to do with the party, don't ask me, because I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you. Because if you have need to know, then you don't need to ask a question. That's it. So it's none of our business, and yes. And I just want to say really quickly, I just have a few minutes left, but we do see a crisis of white people. And that crisis is with all those white people who are still hooked to this imperialism. They're committing suicide, drug addiction, dying from overdoses of drugs, alcoholism. 88,000 mostly white people die every year from alcoholism, from all kinds of what they call them deaths of despair. The deaths of despair is because they are hooked to an imperialism that is being brought down brick by brick, and they see no future that they expected from imperialism. They see only death and destruction. So that's why we have to bring them into Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and say there is a future. There is a future. It's in reparations, the most positive stand, the genuine self-criticism to African people and the people on the planet Earth, and the ability to join in solidarity as humanity saves this entire planet, because white power has brought it to the brink of destruction, not just nuclear war and all of that, but even climate change, where they say that it has brought it to the place where the habitat that supports human life is dying. And white people are never going to solve that. African people, liberated Africa, the unity of Africa and all African people around the world, and the return of their resources and the liberation of indigenous and oppressed peoples everywhere will be the ones that solve the problems left by this vicious, death-dealing system that has brought about the extinction of entire human beings and civilizations. That this is the future. This is the future. This is our future. This is the only future, and we stand in solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is leading this struggle, who will continue to lead, and who will win, who is winning. Uhuru and unity through. Uhuru.